Life has a way of throwing curveballs, but nothing could have prepared me for the chaos that would unfold when my cousin, who had just been released from prison, entered our lives. My cousin, 42 years old, had served 13 years for child molestation. A charge like that already made me wary of his presence, but since my boyfriend and I rented a small house right next to his parents, avoiding him wasn't an option. For context, I'm 20 and my boyfriend is 26. We live a quiet life, mostly focused on building our future. My cousin's release was unsettling, but not something I thought would directly affect me. However, it quickly became clear that his presence wasn't just an awkward reminder of his past. It was the catalyst for a family disaster I never saw coming. Before my cousin got out of prison, my mom barely visited me. She'd stop by occasionally, but her appearances were infrequent and casual. That all changed once he moved in next door. Suddenly, she started visiting every weekend, always with her hair and makeup done, looking more put together than I'd ever seen her. At first, I thought maybe she was just trying to be supportive or reconnect with family, but her behavior around him felt off. She seemed flirtatious, laughing too hard at his jokes and finding excuses to linger in conversations with him. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, especially because my mom has a history of cheating. Years ago, she betrayed my dad, but they worked through it and stayed together. I wanted to believe she'd learned her lesson, so I ignored the warning signs. Things started to escalate during one of our family card nights. My dad, who couldn't attend, began texting me, asking if my mom and cousin were alone together. At the time, they weren't, so I assured him everything was fine. But the fact that he even had to ask planted a seed of doubt in my mind. The following weekend, my dad called me, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. He said he'd discovered that my mom was messing around with my cousin. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My own mother, the woman who raised me, was sneaking around with a man who had spent over a decade in prison for one of the most heinous crimes imaginable. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to confront her. So, before heading to my college classes that day, I went to my dad's house to talk to her. She denied everything, saying they were just friends, but her defensiveness and unwillingness to meet my eyes told me she was lying. "I'm not doing anything wrong," she insisted. "We're just family, that's all." My dad wasn't buying it either. He told her she needed to leave and took her phone, which he paid for, to cut off her communication with my cousin. My mom seemed lost, unsure of what to do next. I asked her if she was planning to stay with me, and she said she might, but her hesitation made it clear that leaving my cousin wasn't an easy decision for her. Later that night, I came home from school and saw her car parked at my cousin's parents' house. I called my aunt to confirm, and she told me my mom was over there, not at work as she'd claimed. Furious, I marched over to confront them. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. She tried to brush me off, saying she was tired and didn't feel like going to work. But when I pressed her about why she was back at my cousin's house, she couldn't give me a straight answer. Finally, my cousin spoke up. "Look, I have feelings for her," he said, as if that justified everything. My mom admitted she felt the same way, but claimed they were taking things slow. I was beyond disgusted. How could she even consider a relationship with him? I told her she could stay with me, but only on the condition that she completely cut off contact with my cousin. She hesitated, saying she needed time to think. That hesitation spoke volumes. The next morning, I woke up early to take her to my dad's house to get some clothes, but when I went to check on her, she was gone. I looked outside and saw her car parked at my cousin's house again. She'd lied to me, choosing to spend the night with him instead. Later that day, I sent them both a blunt message. "Hey, this message is for you and Mom. I've tried to be nice, but no one is listening. Mom, I told you that you can stay here, but only if you cut off all communication with him out of respect for Dad. If you're going to keep seeing him, you need to stay with him or find your own place. I'm not going to let you use my house as a pit stop while you play house with him during the day. Decide tonight what you're going to do." About 10 minutes later, my mom showed up at my house, pretending she hadn't seen the message. She asked to use my phone to call my dad and little brother. I handed it over, not realizing she had ulterior motives. She spent over 3 hours on the phone with my dad, convincing him to let her stay in the guest room until she could get back on her feet. But while she was talking to him, she was also texting my cousin from my phone, telling him how much she wanted to be with him. For 2 days, she stayed at my dad's house, promising him she'd cut ties with my cousin. They even slept together, trying to rekindle their relationship. But the entire time, she was texting my cousin behind his back, making plans to see him again. When my dad found out, he kicked her out for good. She moved in with my cousin and hasn't spoken to me or my brother since. I've decided to cut her out of my life completely. She chose a man she'd known for 3 weeks over her family. She lied to me, used me, and betrayed us all. I can't even begin to process the emotional toll this has taken on me. My mom was supposed to be my role model, someone I could trust. Instead, she's become someone I barely recognize. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this? How do you move forward when someone you love shatters your trust so completely?